This video is potentially the most important video for you on why you have back pain and how to fix it, but also why you haven't gotten better with other treatments or your pain came back, which is very, very, very common. There are 5 main components. There are 5 steps that you need to make sure that you do well so that your back pain goes away, but more importantly, so it doesn't come back. And it's really based on what causes the back pain. I call it the first principle of back pain. What's the underlying cause of your pain? You treat the cause, pain goes away, doesn't come back if you do it properly. It's all about the disc. It's all about the disc and the distribution of the load on the disc. How is the disc being loaded? What are your everyday activities that are maybe overloading it, or in some cases underloading it, where you're taking the pressure off? But it's the distribution of the load. When the load goes directly through the center, the disc is like a jelly donut. The distribution of the load is even in all directions. You want it even in all directions. It's the uneven load that starts to cause you the trouble. And there are things that you do that create the uneven load. A good example is sitting. When you're sitting for extended periods of time, what happens is your back flattens out a little bit. And what that does is it forces the disc in a certain position where the nucleus starts to migrate out. The longer you have that, or underlying causes like old injuries tend to perpetuate it, but that nucleus over time, because of the load, will start to work its way out. And there are 3 main things. It's the excessive stress concentration, meaning there's too much pressure on one portion of the disc for too long. We need the distribution even in all directions. When you alter that by everyday activities, then you start to aggravate the spine. Another one is too much motion. The discs are designed to move, but sometimes they can move too much. If you bend too often, very often the tissues get weaker. You overload the tissues and they start to break down. And then there's flat out excessive loads. When you don't have the ability to tolerate the load, meaning it's too much load for your threshold, then it starts to break down. And it's that breakdown that causes the pain. Doesn't matter what you call it. 24 vertebrae between the head and the hips. In between each vertebrae, well, the vertebrae of the bone, in between each bone there is a disc. That disc relies on an equal amount of pressure in all directions. What happens is sometimes that disc will start to push out, and as it pushes out, it creates a tear in the annulus, and that tear is what gets aggravated. Again, there's 5 components. And it's all about making sure that that disc does not get aggravated. If you do things all day long that aggravate the disc, the pain never goes away. Healthy discs like this, as that nucleus starts to migrate out through that tear, which is right out through there, the annulus will start to tear under the load, or under the excessive motion, or under the excessive load. Those 3 things will start to cause the disc to tear. And that tearing will start to cause the nucleus to migrate out. And as the nucleus migrates out, it becomes very painful and inflamed. There's an inflammatory process that takes place. That causes your pain. And if you continue to aggravate it, then the tear will get worse every single day. But they can heal. Matter of fact, they can heal with gristle, sort of organized scar tissue that holds everything in place. And the herniations can go away. And the bulges can go away. You do not need to live in pain. People think, it's never going to go away. I've tried everything. We discovered and this was the game changer, we discovered that the discs can move under load, and they move in two different directions, meaning there's two different mechanisms that will cause it. This changed everything, because sometimes yours can move forward, sometimes it can move backward, depending on your biomechanics, depending on your muscle function, how well everything works together. So not everybody's the same. It is this bias that we call it that was really the game changer, because that's when we were able to identify the pattern. When we identified the pattern by using MRIs, we were able to identify the sequence of events. So we know there's two patterns, and there are 5 steps. When you understand the 5 steps, you can live pain-free. When you understand the 5 steps, you'll understand why you didn't get better in the past. This is the most important thing. What are the 5 steps? You have to do them in the proper order. If you do them in the wrong order, pain will come back and or not get better. It'll get worse. Or if you're using the wrong bias, if you're doing the wrong exercises. We discovered by doing the MRIs that there are 2 pathways out. If you're on the wrong pathway, you won't get better. Even though everybody says, no, you're on the right pathway, you'll be on the wrong pathway. You won't get better. It's 5 steps. Step number 1 is to make sure that you're moving properly. There are everyday activities, bending, lifting, twisting. Twisting catches a lot of people off guard, where I didn't think it was going to hurt. It's the everyday activities that when you do them properly allows for the disc to start to, the inflammation to go away, the pain to start to go away, the disc to start to heal. But if you continue to move wrong and or rest wrong, and what do I mean by rest? Meaning if you're sitting for long periods of time and you're not doing anything to help the discs get back in a better position or unload the disc, then you're going to perpetuate that process. So there's an element of resting, meaning what are you not doing? Okay, if you're not bending and you're sitting, then that's resting, but there is a point where when you're sitting too long, you're going to aggravate it. So it's about the abnormal motion patterns, but it's also about what you're doing when you're not up around moving, if you're sitting or you're lying down. Okay, but also bending, too much bending over the disc. So it's healthy movement patterns. So step number 1 for you is to identify what patterns are making you worse, and then start to do the healthy movement patterns. We have a program called 10X. Phase number 1 is to get the spine to calm down. It'll calm down if you move properly. That's the key. You don't want to aggravate the disc. So the goal is to make sure that you're sitting properly in the best position for your spine and you're moving properly. Number 2. So number 1 is you want to make sure you're not moving on the disc. Okay? Number 2, make sure all the muscles that support the spine are working in balance, meaning they all work together the way they should. What happens sometimes is specific muscles get tight, specific muscles get weak, specific muscles get loose, and then it changes the balance on the disc. When the muscles are out of alignment or the muscles in back are real tight, what does it do? It pulls on that vertebrae, which forces the disc in a certain position. Starts to aggravate the annulus. So you have to make sure the muscles are all working together in balance. We call that stability. That's when you're stable. Are they working? Are the nerves telling the muscles what to do? Are the nerves firing? So you have to work on stability. Number 1, make sure you're moving well. Make sure you're not moving in positions that's going to aggravate it. Number 2, make sure the muscles are activated. We wake these muscles up. There's certain exercises you do to have to wake the muscles up for your core. They have to be balanced, front, back, side to side. Okay, there's 4, the front, the back, and both sides. They have to work in conjunction with each other. The muscles in the back, the erectors, okay, they have to be doing. The shoulder also is a big contributor, okay? Have to have balance in the patterns. Have to make sure the muscles are doing what they should be doing, because when they're not, you overload the disc. Number 3, as you establish normal function in here, because you're preventing the motion on the vertebrae and preventing abnormal motion on the disc, because you really are supposed to be moving the hips, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But as you start to activate these muscles, you need to make sure they have endurance. Endurance is the ability for a muscle to work for long periods of time. Marathon runners, we're not going to make you a marathon, we're not even going to make you run if you don't want to. Okay, but marathon runners, to run 24 miles, you have to have endurance. Okay, to run 2 blocks, you don't need endurance. Maybe you do a little bit, but you don't need the same amount of endurance that you need for running 24 miles. That's the key. We're not going to get you to run 24 miles, but it's the ability to hold a position and not have the muscles fatigue. When the muscles fatigue, what happens? If you want to be standing like this and you're taking the pressure off the disc and then the muscles slowly start to fatigue, what happens? You start to load the disc, and you load it in a weight-bearing environment. It's going to aggravate the disc. So endurance of all these muscles. The better your endurance here, the better your longevity, period. Okay, so then you have to work on the endurance. That's number 3. There are 5 steps. If you have a breakdown or a weakness in any of these 5 steps, you're going to aggravate that annulus. Step number 4 is make sure the hips are mobile. When the hips are mobile, it takes the pressure off the spine. If your hips are tight and the hip joints aren't moving the way they should, then your spine starts to do the movement. And we know that when the spine starts to do the movement, that is bad. So the goal is to increase hip mobility, but you have to do them in the proper order. You can't activate the hips and create more mobility in the hips if your spine is unstable, because then to activate and mobilize the hips, now you're going to overload the disc in the process. And when the hips are tight, again, if you should be using the hips to move and your hips are too tight or weak, and they're kind of similar, but the tight hip causes the spine to move. The weak hip causes the spine to move, but you have to get them mobile first. The hips, that is. That's step number 4, because we're taking the pressure off the disc. Okay? Step number 5 is hip strength. The hip strength will give you the durability and the resilience to do everyday activities without pain. When you have pain for too long, you stop living. Life is less pleasant. It's a challenge. You don't want to do certain things because you know it's going to hurt. Start to strengthen the hips. It'll give you the ability to start to perform all the activities that you want to do without pain. What are those activities? Sometimes it's just walking. Sometimes it's running. Sometimes it's skiing. Sometimes it's tennis. Sometimes it's golf. Sometimes it's dancing. Activate the glutes. Bilateral, okay? Not uncommon that when one hip gets a little bit tight, it starts to overload the disc and results in a bulging disc. Over time, you have to make sure the hips are doing what they should be doing in conjunction bilaterally. Okay, squatting. You don't necessarily need to squat weights, but the key is you have to activate the glutes. That's step number 5. You do these 5 steps in that order, your pain will go away and your pain won't come back as long as you maintain strength, stability, and endurance and mobility of the hips. Stability of the spine, mobility of the hips. Okay, you don't want a mobile spine, you want mobile hips. Maybe mobile thoracics, but not mobile lumbars. The reason you haven't gotten better in the past and the reason this program works so well is because we target step by step by step by step to get you through this. This is the only way out. I've done this for 30 years. I lived it for 10. Severe, severe, severe back pain. When things are functional, then you add the push, pull, carry, squat, lunge, all the everyday activities. So then you can be prepared for all the events of your life, including active more sports. Again, The discs will heal. The annulus will heal. You do not have to live with it. If you have a shortfall in your function, your endurance, or your stability, then you're more likely to have a breakdown. So the goal is resilience. Resilience is the durability. How do we do it? We focus on functional strength and functional endurance. You have to be stronger. Sometimes what happens is we're so weak in one muscle of the low back. We're so weak that even the exercises, the simple exercises designed to strengthen it, are too much. That's what I had. It was so weak for years and years and years and years of breaking down, that the simple activities I tried made it worse. I thought I'm never going to get better. I'm doing whatever it tells me to do. I'm not getting better. I'm getting worse. Okay, there's a level. There's a way to get into this. There's a way to start this. Even when it's 10 years, weak, broken down, you can get better. I had it. So the key is strength. The discs will heal if you allow them to heal. This is my favorite saying. The Marines say, pain is weakness leaving the body. We've had pain, and it's made us very, very weak. Okay? Pain relief now is the weakness leaving the body. What does that mean? It means as you get stronger, you will have less pain. It's the only way out. This is why in the past you didn't get better. The goal is strength. There is a way. It's not complicated. It's 5 steps. You do the 5 steps, you can live your life again. This is important. This is why all other treatments you tried have failed. It's this pathway. They put you in the wrong position or they put you on the wrong path. That's what happens. That's why you didn't get better. Work on the exercises, stick with the program, don't quit, and you can live pain-free. The 10X program will get you there. It's a step-by-step process, walking you through all 5 steps to help you regain function, regain stability, regain your sanity. I know it. I had it. I was depressed. You lose your motivation, you kind of lose hope, and you get depressed. Okay? But there is a way out, and you can live pain-free. 10X is the way out. We figured it out. So, if you want to get better, and you want to commit, 10X. TotalBackPainRelief.com/10X order. That's the program. Zena, come here. Sign up if you haven't signed up. Check it out. Even Zena endorses it. Right, Zena? Come on, Cody. Get your boy. Come on. What is it? All right. That's 10X. Sign up. Get your life back starting today. Boom.